Hi friends, it's Rabbi Briskin with a thought for Shabbat. You don't have to dig too deeply into the Torah to discover that Jewish tradition commands us to care for the poor, the vulnerable, and the disenfranchised. Dozens of mitzvot articulating these values permeate many columns of Torah, especially this week. Parashat Bahar focuses our attention on issues of economic justice. Verses this week describe several conditions that exacerbate economic inequality, while also providing idealized remedies to help reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. For example, Parashat Bahar describes the Shemitah and Yovel years, when every 7 years all outstanding debts are forgiven, that's Shemitah, and when every 50 years land is returned to its original owner, that's Yovel. Both of these principles are intended to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. However, as idealistic as these principles may be, they were never enacted or written into law. Instead, they serve as reminders of our own personal responsibility to mitigate extreme divisions among people. So how do we do this? The Torah teaches us that when our kinsman descends into poverty and debt, we use our own resources to help lift them out of their condition. For example, if they become an indentured servant, we don't exact interest as they work to pay off their debt. We maintain their dignity by feeding them as we would feed ourselves. We provide a place to sleep that is as comfortable as the place where we sleep. We clothe them appropriately. Each of these mitzvot are intended to help preserve the dignity of the poor. Today, we have a moral obligation as articulated in our texts to help alleviate poverty. It may be through direct tzedakah to relief organizations or volunteering with these organizations. It may be policy work as we advocate for systemic changes within our government agencies that will help better protect the poor and vulnerable. We increase funding to help provide for them, especially health care, family leave, and food assistance for women who may be forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy to term should the Supreme Court overturn Roe v. Wade. These are different ways to help reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. But the one thing we cannot do is stand idly by or ignore the situation. From ancient days to this very day, our religious responsibilities have remained clear. It's what this week's Parashat commands. It's what our rabbis have taught for centuries. It's what our conscience compels us to do when we see someone suffering. How we do it and how we respond, it's up to us. So friends, may the day come when all people are provided with their basic needs: food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, jobs. However, until that day comes, let us do our part to ensure that each of these ills can be abated just a bit through our dedication and commitment to the most needy among us. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom.